Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining our digital banking webinar for businesses, the Treasury Management version. We thank you for attending, and we are going to be having a poll which we would like you to participate in. It will tell us how long that you have had a relationship with Civista Bank. So if you would not mind participating in the poll, we would greatly appreciate it. We will be getting the webinar started shortly, so I thank you for participating and appreciate your patience while we make sure that everyone has an opportunity to get signed in and ready to partake of a smarter, brighter digital banking experience. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this afternoon's digital banking webinar for businesses, the Treasury Management edition. We thank you for joining us, and we would like you to participate in the poll that should be showing on your screen. We would love to know how long you have had a relationship with Civista Bank. We will be getting started with the webinar shortly. We're just going to give another minute or a couple of minutes to allow everyone to have an opportunity to join and participate in the poll. We will be with you shortly, and we appreciate your patience. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for our digital banking webinar for businesses, the Treasury Management edition. We will be getting started shortly. Meanwhile, there is a poll that we would love for you to participate in and give us an idea how long you have had a relationship with Civista Bank. We're going to give perhaps just another minute in order to allow as many people as possible to log into the webinar and also participate in the poll. So thank you for joining, and we appreciate your patience. Oh, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for our digital banking webinar for businesses, the Treasury Management Edition this afternoon. We are going to get started here shortly, perhaps in about another 30 seconds or so. Just wanted to give everyone an opportunity to get logged in and to participate in the poll. If you've just logged in and you haven't had an opportunity, please take this opportunity now to tell us how long you've had a relationship with Civista Bank. And we will get started here in just about 30 seconds. Thanks for being patient. All righty then, being respectful of everyone's time, we are going to end the polling. I'm going to count down in about 10 seconds. So that will give us 10. And then now we'll just sort of leap ahead to 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we are going to end the polling now. We thank you so much for participating in the polling. And we are going to go ahead and get started with this afternoon's session for digital banking webinar for businesses. I'd like to start off by introducing Donna Jaskowski.
Hello and welcome to Civista Bank's Smarter, Brighter Digital Banking Demonstration. Thank you for joining us today. We're happy that you're here and excited to share with you our new digital banking platform, and trust that you'll find the navigation as user-friendly as many of our earlier testers have shared with us. I'm Donna Jaskolski, Civista Bank's Customer Experience Officer. Joining me today are several members of our team to help support you in the introduction of the new digital banking platform. Raymond Wheeler with our Learning and Development team will be your host, and Chris Colbett, a member of our digital banking expert, will demonstrate the new site. Brenda Leal, Alyssa Pickens, and Allison Breither from our digital banking team will be assisting in answering all of your questions. We're excited to introduce to you what our team has been preparing for you for over the past 10 months. We value your opinion and look forward to hearing your feedback in the weeks ahead. I'd like to introduce you now to Raymond Wheeler, your host for today's call. Raymond, take it away.
Thank you so much, Donna. Hello, everyone, and allow me to share with you the format for today's webinar. All participant lines will be muted during the webinar, and this webinar is being recorded. Now, we do encourage you to use the question and answer link at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions during the demonstration. Following the demonstration, we will address as many of your questions as possible during our time remaining. However, during the presentation, there are members of the team who will also respond directly in the Q&A window during the session. Before we begin the demonstration, I'd like to share the results of our poll question that you participated in at the start of the webinar. Let me bring that up for you now. All righty, so as you can see, we have a significant amount of our clients, about 33%, that have been with us for more than 10 years. Well, that is absolutely wonderful. And if that isn't a statement of loyalty, I don't know what is. But we do certainly thank you for that. Now, before we begin the demonstration, I want you to know that we certainly appreciate the privilege of having all of you as Civista customers, whether you've joined us in the past year or whether you've been banking with us for many years. I'd like to go ahead and turn this over to Mr. Chris Colbett, who is our digital banking expert. Chris, you have the helm, sir.
All right, thank you for that, Raymond, and thank you everybody for joining. We're going to go ahead and jump right into this demonstration. And again, please feel free to use the Q&A as we go through this if you have questions come up. Okay, This will be your initial Civista Bank login. Now, just a couple things I wanted to cover here. So the first time that you go ahead and sign into the new system, what you're going to do is you're going to enter your user ID and password. Okay, and that again will be the same user ID and password that you currently use today. The system will then come up and it'll prompt you for a security token code. But when the first time you sign in, it's going to validate that security token. So you're actually going to have to put that in twice. You'll put it in the first time, wait 30 seconds till it refreshes a second code, enter that in, and then you're going to be prompted to change that password. Now, again, that's just going to be for the first time login. Going forward, you'll just use that user ID, your new password, and only have to enter that login token once. So we'll go ahead and get started here. I'm going to go ahead and get my secure access code. Okay, so this is going to be kind of our main screen, if you will. From here, what this will be what we kind of see when we first sign in. Now you'll notice in the middle there, it's going to ask for my priority accounts. Right now, I don't have any of those defined, so let's go ahead and walk through on how to do that. You'll notice when you first come in the system, you're going to have this view all accounts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually select this view all accounts. And here is a list based off of my security, my access, all the different accounts that I have access to. It's as simple as this. If I want to make them a priority account, and I'm going to do that for all of these since I only have 4, I'm just going to go ahead and click on the star to the left of it, and those are now priority accounts. What that does for me, if I go back to my home screen, okay, now every time I log in to the digital banking, this is the view I'm going to see. I'm going to see all 4 of these accounts show up here. Again, as we kind of walk through this, you're going to see there's a couple different ways to do some of the same functions. I'm going to try to show you pretty much all those different options we have. These rectangles that we have out here, we call those account tiles. So each one of your accounts kind of has its own separate tile. And in my particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to these 3 dots. Now, these are going to be your options or your more action buttons. Throughout the system, you're going to see those quite a few different places. Just know that's how you can go do additional actions or go do additional features, if you will. You'll notice when I click on that, it now gives me a menu of different actions that I can take. For our starting point, I'm actually going to go in and nickname the account. Okay. So you can see that my personal nickname that I have already defined for the account is, business CK. Okay. If I wanted to, maybe I'm going to put all of my initials in there. I'll call it business CK. I go ahead and I save that, and you can see almost instantaneously it goes ahead and it updates that description. If you think about it, if you're a business out there, maybe that has several different accounts, maybe you've got payroll for a couple different companies. It's very handy to be able to go in, put that nickname on there, so you know whether you're going out of the payroll for the property company, or maybe it's the payroll for the actual management company. I'm going to go back to those more option buttons. You're going to hear me refer to those quite a few times as I go through this. What I'm going to now go ahead and do is click on View Activity. This is going to take me to the point where I'm now able to go in and look at my transactions. So you'll see I've got pending. So that's today's activity, if you will. I've got some ACH, I've got some chargeback on some fees, and I've also have a regular check. So if I want to, I can actually expand any one of these specific items and look at some more information. Additionally, for those items that are physical items, such as some types of deposits, checks, obviously, this is where I can see that image. I can actually see the front and back of said image. Now, remember what I said earlier, right? Anytime I see these options or these action buttons, I know I can do additional components. So if I wanted to, I could actually click on print at this point. And what this is going to do is going to bring up that transaction, also with the image, should I need to print that for whatever reason. The other option that you're going to see here when I do that, maybe you'll see that, is I can actually ask a question. So this is something that's maybe a little bit different than you're used to today, but I can actually send a message to the Civista customer care team. So I could type in there, hey, got a question on this specific transaction. Additionally, if I wanted to, I could browse out, put an attachment to it. Maybe, for example, this check was supposed to be $13.21, and then I would hit send message. We'll talk about the message center quite a bit as we continue to move through this, but this is just one potential use of that is if you have an inquiry about a transaction. The nice thing about it, the Civista customer care team is going to get all of this detail, what your question is about it, as well as any supporting documentation. Okay. You'll notice there's a set of icons kind of over on the right here. One of the things I could do is I could actually search, and if I do that search, it's going to allow me to search basically by a description. So, you know, if I am looking for a payment to ABC Waterworks, I could start typing in that description. The system's then going to go ahead and narrow it down. The other icons you're going to see, one of them is going to be a filter. A filter is one I think a lot of you will probably use from time to time. It's just a way to narrow down the transactions. So, for example, in my particular case here, I want to go ahead and say I want transactions for this month, so the month of May, if you will. And maybe I just want to do a dollar range that I'm looking for. I know this transaction came through. It should have been between, you know, $10 and $100, let's say. What I can do then is I can go ahead and apply filters. If I look, now you're going to see my transactions are only these specific two. When we originally pulled that up, we had lots of different transactions, including that check image. But since I have narrowed that down, these are the transactions that I'm actually seeing. There's a little down arrow here, and what that allows you to do is to actually export. Now, since I have a filter on there, if I was to choose export at this time, it's only going to export those two specific transactions. These are the different formats we have. We can do a normal Excel file. We can do a CSV file. You can see we can do Quicken, QuickBooks. So there are some different options there. So any of you out there that maybe, you know, download transactions to feed into your accounting software, maybe do a periodic, periodic reconciliation of them, you can go ahead and download those transactions. Okay. Just like before, if I want to, I can print a list of those transactions, or I can ask a question about that subgroup. So you'll find a couple different ways to do the same thing within the system. We'll get into some reporting pieces here as we go on as well. But this is how you would do it basically for a specific account if you want to use kind of the posted transactions. One thing I also wanted to bring up, you're going to notice as well going forward that we will actually have more history out there. So we'll start building it up on the new system. I believe we're going to have up to potentially 24 months worth of history. So again, a filter is going to come in handy for you to be able to narrow down maybe the most recent transactions. That said, if you need to do research, you know, eventually we'll have the history built up to around that 24 months. We can now go into this tab here called Details and Settings. This just gives you a little bit more information about that specific account. So for example, if I wanted to look at available balance versus current balance, if I wanted to look at any of my nicknames. Now, one thing you'll notice here, I also have that personal nickname, and you're going to see I have a global nickname as well. The way the global nickname works is if, let's say that I'm the CFO, I go in and I put a global nickname of, business payroll. If you wanted to actually overwrite that for your specific login, you would use the personal nickname. So if I was to use the global nickname, that's the description that would show up, unless I had entered a personal nickname that kind of overrides it. So I get that question sometime on the difference of the two, so just wanted to point that out. Now, one thing to kind of always remember, especially as you're first getting into the system and stuff, if you kind of wonder how I get out of this particular screen, just always hit either back to home or the home icon. That's going to take you back to that initial landing page, if you will. Kind of like when you were a kid, maybe, you never know where to start, you can always go back home and they'll start you back off on the right track, so to speak. Okay, I'm going to, again, one more time, I'm going to go back to this. You notice that I can do what we call a quick transfer. And when I do a quick transfer, what's going to end up happening for this particular screen is the from account is going to default in based off of the account I actually clicked on there, right? So that's where you're going to see that business CCK. The to account, I can choose that. And then I'm going to put a dollar amount and what is the transfer date. So maybe I wanted the transfer to not happen until tomorrow, the 28th. Okay, again, kind of back to that home screen, if you will, that normal landing screen. There is over on the right what we call quick links. So if I was to go in and move money, I'm bringing that same transfer screen up, if you will, but you're going to notice since I wasn't actually selected on a specific account, what it ended up doing for me is it's now going to make me put both the from and to account. Additionally, just a few more options. So again, since I didn't do a quick transfer, I'm bringing up the full transfer screen, if you will. I still have my amount, but what you'll see a little bit different this time from the original one is I actually have the ability to throw in a frequency. So if I know that I'm going to be moving from my operating account to my payroll account on the 1st and 15th of the month, let's say, system does say, hey, when do you want this to start? So again, maybe, I'm not going to start this till June because we're already past the 15th of May. I can just select on that and I can say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and start that on June 1st. Additionally, if you wanted to do the reoccurring one, I can actually set an end date. So I could just say, hey, I want this to happen basically until I cancel it, or maybe I know I'm just going to use this for 6 months, want to review it. I can actually put the end date. This memo is optional. It will carry over to your posted transactions, your bank statement. So again, if you want to just put a little bit additional information on there, that's one place where you could come in and do that. This is over on the right. What will happen here is as you start using the system, it's actually going to keep a history of the transfers you did. You'll have both a pending and a processed. Why I like this specific option, if you're like me, maybe, gosh, you got to move money between 2 or 3 accounts. All of a sudden, I've got a call from the owner. Maybe it's a couple of urgent emails from customers. I can always go back in and look at the individual accounts, just like we did to see the transactions had moved. Or if I want to, I can actually go into this process because that'll show me all in one screen, both the from and to and the dollar amount. Even if I wanted to go back and look at, a transfer I did 2 days ago. All right, so that kind of covers the basic movement of money, the transfers, if you will. Now I want to go into messages, okay? This is where, had I sent that message about the transaction, right? This is where I'm going to see that correspondence. This is where Civista's customer care team is going to respond. I would actually see their response, any attachments, any type of details within the secure messaging. Additionally, this is where you're going to find a lot of your security alerts as well. Okay, we'll go through security and the different types of alerts in pretty much of a detailed. But one of the things I want to show you, for example, I can set up security alerts as saying, hey, this password has changed. Now, I'm not taking my own advice here because I'm in a test system, but basically, once you've looked at that specific message, have addressed it, kind of best practices, just go ahead and delete it, kind of clean up that Think of that as an email almost. For those of you that have remote deposit capture, you're going to be able to go ahead and click on this deposit. That'll basically launch you out to that. Now, if you currently do that outside of your online banking and just have a direct link, that will still work as well. We just added this feature because sometimes we think it's nice to have everything under one umbrella. But once you launch it, get into it, it's going to look and feel the same as what you're used to. And again, you'll only see that deposit if you have security rights to do that specific feature. Okay. I do have the ability to pay, and under this is going to basically to do a loan payment. Okay. Now I get a lot of questions on this. So if you already have an automatic loan payment set up, you won't have to do anything. That's going to continue to work. Think about this pay a loan is if you don't have an automatic payment set up, or maybe if you want to do an out of cycle loan payment, for example. So again, I'm going to choose my business checking. I'm going to go ahead and look at this variable loan. And again, we're going to show you some different information about that. We're going to show you when the next payment's going to be due, what the current balances are. Then within there, depending on the type of loan, you can either do a regular payment or a principal only payment. So again, let's say I've got an auto loan payment already set up for a piece of machinery. Nothing you have to change or do. If you wanted to come in here and say, you know what, I want to do an extra principal payment, and I could actually make this reoccurring of maybe, you know, $200 a month, I could actually set that up, or I could just do a one-time payment as well. Just like we talked about with the transfers, you have to select the date, and then you can put in a memo or a description, make that transaction a little bit more meaningful to you if you need to go back and do research. Okay, again, you're going to notice I'm just kind of trying to reinforce this. I'm going to go back home a lot of times. Just like to start from this particular screen so you guys get a look and feel for it. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into business management. For those of you that do ACH and wires, you're going to spend a lot of time under this particular navigation node. Okay, so I'm going to start by going to payment templates. And payment templates, these are existing ACH transactions with different vendors, maybe different customers that I'm collecting money from, renters, for example, that I'm going to continue to use those payment templates over and over again. Now, you'll notice in my example here, I have 5 templates. For those of you that probably have much more ACH activity than I do in my test, right, these filters will become important. So right now I have all filters turned on. If I just wanted to see my collections, again, maybe I'm going to collect commercial rent from a couple of different entities, then I can just do ACH collection, and it's only going to show me those type of transactions. ACH batches, and again, the terminology is really I'm going to pay an invoice, right? I'm sending money to somebody. Maybe I've got this vendor payments that I pay every month. So let's take a look at this template. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do an edit on this. When I do an edit, this is the exact same screen you're going to see when you create a new one. And again, one of the things I asked people to do, if you do have existing templates out there, when you get into the Civista system, just take a look at them, kind of get familiar with how to make changes, how to kind of do some review, if you will, of it. Maybe you want to change the name or add a little bit different description than what you had previously. I can now go into the user roles. Okay, so within the user roles, this one's kind of important. Maybe I'm going to look at it and say, you know what, for this particular template, the accounts receivable team, or it could be an individual person, Jane Doe, John Doe type of thing. This is where you can turn on who has access to this. Another use case of this might be, for example, let's say that you got an individual does payroll, but there's an annual bonus payout, and that one needs to be initiated by the controller. So you could set up the payroll individual to have access to all payroll templates except for this specific one, and then in which case only the controller's user would be assigned to it. Okay. From here, then I've also got my subsidiary. So for those of you that might have multiple entities out there, for example, right? Mine's Doughboys Pizza. Maybe I've got XYZ rental storages or something like that. You can select your different subsidiaries. And then this is going to be the account. So again, since I'm paying somebody, this is the account that that money is going to be debited from. And down below, this is my list of recipients, or in this case, the businesses, if you will, that I'm going to actually be sending payments to. Okay, what I can actually do if I want to see additional details about ABC Waterworks, you'll notice that it's going to show me some more information. It's going to show me that display name. It's going to show me what type of an account. It's going to show me the account number, the routing number. Now, just like we talked about before, I'm right within this template. I can actually do an edit, okay? And let's say that the reason I'm going to head and do this edit because they informed me that they're changing the account number, okay? So I could actually come in here and change this account number. And let's say ABC Waterworks, I pay them for a couple of different entities. The nice thing about the way the system works is if I change this account number for ABC Waterworks as the recipient, it would change it for any of the additional templates that that recipient is tied to. Okay. The other piece of this, let's say they're actually changing in financial institutions. They're going to, one of the greatest banks in the country, Savista. I know the bank name, but I don't know the RT number. What I can start doing is I can actually start typing in the financial institution. And then if I hit Savista Bank, you'll notice it's going to automatically update that routing number for me. And we have the exact same feature on the wire side as well, which is kind of nice. Especially, if you happen to be paying somebody that's with one of the larger banks, like Bank of America, who has multiple different branches, it'll allow you to sort down to that level for that specific RT number. Now, a couple things I want to go back and review that I didn't when I went through the first time. As you look at these fields, anywhere you see a red asterisk, okay, keep in mind that is a required field. So if I was to try to update this and blank out ABC Waterworks, the system's not going to let me save that change. Anything such as email address that does not have that asterisk, you can go ahead and leave that blank. Quick comment on the email address. This is optional. If I filled in an email address and I could then click this send notification, what would happen is whenever this template is used and I go to pay ABC Waterworks, we could send an email saying, hey, payment en route type of a thing. The one thing I'm going to, I guess, caution a little bit, especially if you're paying a business, right? A lot of times it's hard to know, is that email still being monitored, if it's kind of a general one, or if that individual happens to leave. So definitely some instances I see it leveraged, but a lot of times there's some reasons just because you may not know how updated that is, where you can just leave that blank. Down here, I've got recipient details. Now, again, throughout the system, one of the things that you'll see is wherever you have these question marks, if you hover over that particular field, what's going to end up happening is it's going to pull up what we call tooltips. And in this case, that tooltip is going to tell you, if I fill in the ACH name, right, where does that go in the outgoing file? How is that going to be seen by the receiving entity? So you can see, it can't exceed 22 characters. It's going to basically, talking about, any invalid characters, and obviously it kind of does that edit check for you. This is optional, but if I wanted to have additional information, even such thing as, let's just put the address in there for ABC Waterworks, I could do that as well. Okay, at this point, if I wanted to save that change, I would just go ahead and hit done and save that. I'm not going to today, but just kind of want to show you how it would work. So I'm now going to do a cancel. The other thing that you're able to do down here in this gray bar, the system does keep kind of a running total of the number and amount of those payments. So, for example, if I was to update this to be $10, move off of that field, you're going to see that I've got 3 payments. It also is smart enough to say, oh, you know, you've got 2 of those that are actually $0. Do you really want to do that? If I needed to, I could go in here and add another recipient. So let's say, for example, that I'm now adding Pizza Party Supply Company to this monthly payment template. I can go in here and I can add a recipient. If I don't already have them as a vendor or as a supplier, I can go ahead and do a new recipient. And you notice that new recipient is going to look exactly like the same screen where we went in and did the change. I could put their information in and then save recipient, which then would save it to this template. I'm going to do a cancel here. I don't want to really add that. Let's say you're going to build a payment template for the first time, but you have multiple different people you want to pay. So rather than going in and searching for those one at a time, I can use this feature called Add Multiple. Okay, so for example, you can see I've got ABC Waterworks, but maybe there's a couple of different accounts out there, depending on where I'm going with that. Maybe I'm going to pay John Doe. Maybe I'm going to pay XYZ Electric. What I can do is I can just quickly go ahead and say, hey, add all 3 of those. So now what you're going to see is I now have 6 payments, 5 of those still for 0. If I wanted to at this point, I could save it. So that's kind of how easy it is to go in and modify, add to, or change a template. And the collection and payroll templates work very similar. I'm going to cancel and lose changes because I don't want to have all those new recipients in there. Okay, so once I have that set up, I can now go ahead and pay. And keep it in mind, your payment templates came over as part of the move to the new digital banking platform. So you shouldn't have to go in and set these up from scratch. I'm going to go ahead and hit pay. Okay, so notice a couple things. First off, the subsidiary, the account number, all of those things are defaulted in. Okay, now I do have to put the effective date. That's one thing that you are going to have to enter. Since it's a template, you're going to use it over and over again, but I do have to put what the effective date is. Optionally, if I wanted to, I could set a reoccurring schedule. If I know I'm going to pay these vendors this amount every month on this particular day. In my case, I'm just going to leave this as it is right now. I would go through and I would update the amounts. And then at this point, I can either draft or initiate, or I can approve the transaction. And this is going to depend on what your company's policy is. Some entities are going to require dual approval. So basically one individual is going to initiate the transaction. Somebody else is going to go in, do a review of it, and approve it before it's actually going to release that ACH file to be processed. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a cancel here again. One other thing that we can do, again, is optional. I'm going to go ahead and pay. So if you have the ability within your system to create a CSV file of the recipient and the dollar amounts, I can actually import the amounts. So I'm going to go up here to import the amounts. And I'm going to choose Doughboys Pizza Vendors. And I'm going to go ahead and open that. So you're going to see what ended up happening is I now have 3 payments, right, for that 75 cents. So again, rather than me having to go to each one of these individual ones and put in the dollar amount, if I had something that had automated that, such as a CSV file, I could just go in and import the amounts that way. All right, let's say for this particular scenario, Pizza Supply Inc., I'm not paying in this period. I can actually select do not pay. What's nice about that specific option, I don't have to remove them from the template. I don't have to make a copy of the template. What will happen is they will not be in this particular cycle's payment, but they'll be in the template for me to use, next month, week, whatever.
Chris?
Yeah.
This is Brenda, and we've had several questions about importing files, payroll files, nacho files. Could you cover that more in depth, please?
Yep, we will absolutely get to that piece of it. And Brenda, thanks for that shout out. We'll just kind of finish this one real quick. I'm just going to go ahead and approve this specific transaction here. Okay, now I'm set up on my particular configuration, right, that I got to have a secure access code to actually go and approve that. So I'm waiting for it. You guys will probably use a token. And I pressed to put in the wrong code there. Operator error, I believe. All right, so that transaction's now been approved. We're going to talk quite a bit about this online activity. For now, just kind of keep in mind that we did approve this base transaction, 2 payments for the 40 cents. Kind of what Brenda was talking about. Let's go into how we actually upload a file. So this would be, we're not using one of the templates, but maybe you've got a third-party software such as a payroll system that creates a Nacha formatted file. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the home just so I can kind of show you step by step here. I'm still going to go into business management. I'm going to choose the payment templates. Okay, but this time, instead of using one of my existing ones, I'm actually going to do a new payment. Okay, and based off of the new payments, here's the different things that I have access to. So in my example, what I'm going to actually do is use a payroll. Okay. So at this point, what the system is going to tell me to do is, hey, I can either add the recipients, or what I can do is I can actually go and do upload from file. And this is the question I think that a lot of you had. I'm going to click on that upload from file. You're going to see I've got several different upload options. Okay. So let's use example 1. If I have a standard Nacha file, I would just go over to these option buttons and I would basically just say, hey, let's use that. That's the format. Okay. We do have a CSV 5-column file. Now that's a standard specification. If I was to click on view specifications, you could see that. Or let's say you have an Excel file, but it has maybe the fields you need, such as RT number, account type, amount, but it has some other different fields as well. We do have the ability to use this and do what we call a mapping. As long as that the limited file gets set up the same, once you do the mapping, it will continue to process it every time. Now, in my example, I don't have a standard Nacha file handy, but what I'll do is going to be the same process I'll show you. I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to use our 5-column. Okay. It just allows me to browse out. In this case, I'm going to do a payroll. I must have used the wrong one there. We'll do that again. Upload from file. I'm going to go ahead and use that 5-column. I'll select my sample payroll. Okay, so you're going to notice that I now have the subsidiary. Again, I'm going to go ahead and pick my account. And within that account, then I still have to go ahead and select the effective date. Now, if you did a standard Nacha file format, you wouldn't have to put the effective date because the effective date would already be in the file. Okay, in my case, since I wasn't using a standard Nacha file, the system doesn't have an effective date, so I have to tell the effective date. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and make it the 3rd. Again, I could make it reoccurring if I wanted to. Usually on a file upload, you're not going to do that. You're just going to go back and upload the file. You'll notice here are the recipients that I got uploaded with that. Very important. I always tell people go ahead and do that validation. So you can see here's the number of payments. There's a dollar amount. And what's going to end up happening, right, since I'm actually doing a payment of a payroll, these are going to be, quite honestly, my credits. My offsetting debit, so i.e. the whole 4 cents is going to go back against this account. At this point, depending on how I'm set up, I will either draft or approve this transaction. Again, that kind of depends on if you're doing dual approval or not.
While you're on this screen, Chris, can you answer, can they have different pay dates or does everything happen on the approved date?
Yeah, so that's a great question. If I'm uploading a file through this particular function here, right, the effective date that I assign is going to be the effective date for all of these entities. So Wendy, Owen, George are going to have the same effective date, right? Now, if you're setting through a Nacha file that has different batches or different effective dates in there, we won't overwrite those effective dates. So hopefully, Brenda, that answered their question.
And then one other question, can you show them again where to enter recipient email addresses in the templates? And what does that notification email say to the recipient?
Yeah, I definitely can do that. Let me just kind of show you. I can actually do it right from this screen. So even though I'm going in from a file upload and modifying this specific thing, I can actually go through here as well. Okay, so right here, when you go in, you can edit the recipient. There's multiple different ways to do it. I'm just showing you, I just decided to do it right from this file. Whether I do it from this file, whether I go out and, do it from the recipient tab, it's still going to work the exact same way. So here again is where I would put that email address, and then I can send email notifications for that template. And basically, I don't have the exact verbiage, but basically what it's going to say, something along the lines of, Wendy, hey, your ACH payment was originated on such and such a date. So let's say it was today's date, effective as of Friday. What we don't do in there is we don't put anything like the account number, what the amount, anything like that's going to be. It's just kind of a more of a generic notification that Wendy knows that that transaction has been initiated. Okay, Brenda, were there any other questions? And these are actually great questions coming out as I'm on this screen.
Actually, the question was pertaining to vendor payments, not so much payroll. Would it work the same?
Yes, it would work the exact same way. Yep. So, right, instead of saying, the payroll is going to get credited or whatever, it would basically say, I think it just says your generic payment. So it would work the exact same way. So if I went back into a batch, for example, I went into my vendor payments. And that's actually a good point here, right? Each one of these recipients really work the same regardless of how I'm using them. But there you can see there's where the email is. All right, Brenda, do we have any other questions? This is awesome. I love that we're getting people to kind of bring up their questions here.
We have a question, but I think you already answered this. They wanted to see a Nacha upload, but I think you said that you don't have a Nacha file to show them. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Again, I'll just show, it's going to work the exact same way here. If I get out of too many screens, Brenda, so you know me, sometimes I get a little click happen here. But just to reiterate, would be under payment templates, I'm going to do a new payment. Now, again, I use payroll as my example. You could be an ACH batch, it could be a collection, but you would just click on payroll. Okay. And then from payroll up on that top right-hand corner, you're going to see that upload from file. Okay. And then what I would do is I would just select Nacha and I would select use. And what it's going to allow you to do is going to allow you, as soon as I click in here, to browse out and import that file. Now, if it's not a standard Nacha file, so for example, if I tried to use this CSV formatted file, it's actually going to error on you. So it does do an edit check to make sure it's a Nacha file.
While you're in this screen, they'd like to know if you can do a TXT file and how you would do that.
Okay, yep, great. So I'm going to actually have to cancel back. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this new payment again. Well, let's do an ACH batch this time, Brenda, just so I remember which one I'm on here. Okay, and then I'm going to still do the upload from file. So if this is a TXT file, more than likely what you're going to do is do this sample mapping, okay? And what happens when I go ahead and use that sample mapping, okay? It's going to, now this one's already been mapped in, so it's just gonna fly through and let me do it. But it's gonna basically come in and say, okay, for example, which field is set up to be the account number, which field is the routing number. Now, one thing about that TXT file, we would need a delimiter in that, right? Whether that's a comma delimited, whether it's quotes, some kind of a delimiter, but you can use that sample, you can use that mapping option to be able to pull that in. And again, we can definitely help you through that if you've got a TXT file and want us to take a look at that and show you kind of how to map it. The nice thing about it is once it's mapped, as long as you don't change the format or the positioning of those fields, you can save it off as Chris's template mapping. And then next time you go, you can just actually use Chris's template mapping. It'll automatically upload. You won't have to remap it every time. Any other questions, Brenda? Like I said, I appreciate you kind of keeping the Q&A monitored for me.
Nope, that's all for now. Thank you.
All right. So one of the things I did want to talk about here a little bit then is recipients. So I'm still under business management. I'm going to now go under recipients. This is the exact same recipient, you will, that I was going through and showing you. So if I went back to ABC Waterworks, right, I could go ahead and do an edit on that. Okay. Now you'll notice, remember how I said I've got a couple of different accounts defined, for that specific recipient. There's my display name. If I want to take a deeper dive into any one of these, I can actually do an edit. Okay. Now, this specific recipient as well, I can actually set that up with the additional ACH name ID. The other thing is going to tell me that ABC Waterworks is used in one template. If I had it out there in 5 templates, it would actually show the 5 templates that I have it in. I'm going to cancel and lose changes because I don't want to make changes. The other piece of this is more for research purposes, but you'll see there's this option called payment history. Okay. What's nice about the payment history, let's say that ABC Waterworks, contacts me and said, hey, they didn't receive the payment for the month of May, or it could have been February, whatever the case is, right? I will actually have a log here of everything that has went out as far as payments to ABC. I can actually then toggle to the details if I wanted to. And I can basically say, yep, Jessica from my company initiated that wire, or I'm sorry, the ACH file. Effective date is 6/28. It's going to process on 6/24. And I can actually see, did it get authorized? Did it get processed? So you can see quite a bit of detail about that specific transactions. If I wanted to, or if I needed to, I could actually export or download, or I could print and then send, ABC Waterworks a copy of that ACH activity.
Chris, we have a question regarding ACH pass-through. Are
Okay.
you able to show that or explain how to do that?
Yeah, so if you have a pass-through file, what you would probably see out here. So again, going back to, depends on what kind of a pass-through that it really is. So if it's a standard Nacha file, such as I'm just paying vendors, or if I'm just doing payroll, again, we would just go to that new payments. I would just choose ACH batch, and I would basically go ahead and just explore out to the upload from file, choose the Nacha file format. Okay. If there truly isn't a pass through, and an example of this might be, if you had to send a CTX type of a transaction, there would be another option out here called ACH pass through. It's going to work pretty much the exact same way that I showed you when we were doing the file upload. One of the differences is, though, Again, the subsidiary and the offset account, that's a true pass-through, we would expect those to already be in the file. And again, we need to take a deeper dive. We can definitely do that at some point. Just in this particular demo, I don't have that feature turned on. Okay. The other piece then that we have the ability to do is tax payments. So don't know if there's anybody out there today that's using the digital channel to do their tax payments, but we do have that ability now. So I kind of wanted to show you that. You can see here are the different authorities. Now, if there's a state out here that you operate in that you're not seeing, contact your TMO officer or the contact center. They'll work on trying to get that state added. So if I was to check Ohio, and again, this is where I can go a filter on the forms, but you can see there's quite a few different state forms that I'm able to remit taxes with. If this is something that you either do today or would like to do, this is kind of where you're going to come in and do that piece of it. Okay. Now I'm going to skip quickly to the online activity, kind of finish up here with our ACH type of discussion. Okay. This is going to be important. So a little bit different maybe than you're used to today, but the online activity, this really shows me all of the different transactions that I have actually initiated. Okay, so one of the things that you're going to notice is going to show me transactions from today, ones I've done in the past. And if I go over to these more action buttons here again, it's going to allow me to do different things. So if I toggle to details, okay, one of the things you're going to notice is, again, it's going to basically say, here's when it was created, here's when it was authorized, who it was processed on, and then I'm going to be able to see those individual recipients here as well. Okay, so I can see XYZ Electric, ABC. And at this point, if I needed to, I could print the details. Now, one thing about printing the details, it does show all of your recipients kind of in a PDF file. So again, if you, for some reason, from an audit perspective or just from record keeping, you know, you want a physical copy of that for whatever reason, you can come in here. One thing to kind of keep in mind though, and maybe save a few trees here, is we will keep these out here. Oops, I don't want to cancel that just yet. Okay, we will keep these out here indefinitely, right? So I could go technically a year from now, find that, and so this kind of becomes that repository for audit purposes if you choose to use it that way. Just like on the transaction screen, I can go in and do a filter. So what I'm going to basically do is say, hey, if I wanted to look for just ACH batches, or if I just wanted to look for payroll, I can narrow down the type of transaction. I can also look at status. So let's say I want to look at just any authorized files, and maybe I don't care about anything else. If I go ahead and I hit apply, okay, notice now all I have is that one transaction from the 27th. I don't have those two from the 20th because those were actually in a status of drafted. Additionally, if you have dual approval, you may want to set up a scenario that says, you know what, when I come in here, I want to see just all drafted transactions so that I can go through and approve those. Okay, in which case now you're going to see I have those two specific transactions that are in drafted status. I've got one that's a wire, I've got one that's a payroll. I can go ahead and make that a favorite, so I'm not having to set up that filter criteria every time. I can just have that saved as a favorite. When I come into online activity, I can just go ahead, click on it. It's automatically going to apply it, and then I can go do my different transactions that I want to. I'm going to reset my filters here. So this specific ACH batch, again, we are operating here in a live system. So I'm actually going to go ahead and cancel that because I don't actually want that to get processed, even though I authorized it. Okay, so again, what the system is doing is basically just saying, hey, this transaction was successfully canceled. You had the rights to do it. And now it's no longer an authorized status. It's been in a canceled status. Continuing down the list here, For those of you that have positive pay, okay, this is going to, I might not be set up here for positive pay, but this is where your positive pay link is going to go to. This will also then, where you're going to work your exceptions, where you're going to load your issued files. And again, if you guys want a little more detail on the positive pay or a quick tutorial, definitely kind of work with your TMO officer. Additionally, I think there's going to be some, training videos and stuff as well. But really, the positive pay is fairly intuitive. You're just going to go ahead and launch that from this particular node here within the digital banking. Again, as soon as you start loading issued files into the system, you'll start getting those exceptions. You'll have different reports and stuff to review. If there are any of you out there that do ACH debit filtering, this is where you would go for that as well. All right. Kind of want to go into the manage of user roles. So this particular section here is going to be just for those that are set up as company administrators. So when you see manage users and user roles, a lot of you that are on today may not see that, only if you're a company admin. So for those company admins, kind of pay attention. Everybody else, maybe grab a refill on your coffee, but we'll go through this fairly quickly. First off, these are all the different users I have set up right now for my specific Doughboys Pizza example. If I wanted to, I can hit this pencil icon. I can go in and edit the user. Now, one thing that'll be, you guys will see when you come in, we made everything be a 1-for-1. So when you see John Doe, you'll see a user role called John Doe. Down the road, if you wanted to, let's say you've got a role called payroll administrator, but maybe you've got 4 or 5 employees. They'll all have their own unique user ID, but if all their rights are the same, rather than having to set it up for 5 different users, you could actually set up one specific role called payroll administrator, and then just assign that to the individual users. Down below, you're going to see a status. You can see that John needs to password change required. So apparently John Doe is missing, pun intended there. But John is going to need to actually sign in that first time. He'll be required to change the password, kind of like I talked about initially. If you can see right now, there's no actions because John hasn't signed in. But this is where you would go if John had locked himself out. Under the actions, I would actually have the ability to enable user. Okay. Now let's talk about the manage user roles. Okay. So I'm going to stick with that theme of payroll administrator, and I'm going to go ahead and edit that specific role. And the first thing you're going to see is the transaction types, right? So this is basically, what does John Doe have access to? Let's say that I no longer want John to have ability to do wires. I can go ahead and click on domestic wires. I'm going to go ahead and click on here, and then I'm going to save this. And when I save it, what I basically have done is for that specific role, I go back out to overview. You're going to notice that domestic wires is now at the bottom. It's got that line through it. These values are all grayed out. So in essence, John will no longer have access to do domestic wires. Okay. Let's say, for example, that ACH collections. Again, I want to make a little bit of a change for John. I'm going to go to his approval limits, and maybe I want to lower that. Put that at $70 per transaction. Maybe my per account per day is also going to be 70. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save this then. Okay. You'll notice now, right, that I didn't change this per month, so the per month stayed the same. But you can also see that the daily limit is now down to $70, whereas before everything was $99.99. So that's how you would go in and make those type of changes. The other one that a lot of you probably are going to want to know about is the accounts. Okay, so this is a list of the accounts and what John can do with those accounts. So, for example, as I'm looking at this particular one, maybe on my business savings account, I don't want to give John the ability to withdraw. So I just click on that, and you'll notice it's got that circle with a line through it, basically saying that he no longer has access to do that specific function. I go ahead and save it. He can still view and deposit into that account. What he can't do is withdraw from that specific account. Last but not least is the features. So within the feature, these are some of the different rights. Now we won't go through all of these. I'm just going to kind of, do some high level. Let's say, for example, John is not set up to be a administrator. So I probably would want to just click turn off manage users. So anytime you see the highlight with the check mark, it means they have access to do it. Anytime it's that just white background, that means they don't have the ability to do it. Okay, and maybe I want to take away the ability to manage the company policy. Maybe we don't want John doing loan payments. You kind of get the idea. You can kind of go through. Now, there are some reports. We'll get into the reports. One of the things I'm going to ask everybody to do, since these will kind of be new to you, take a look at the reports, run them, and then from there you can kind of make a decision which one of those you may want different people to have or to turn off.
Chris, regarding the user roles, what is the difference between the lock and the circle with the slash?
Yeah, great question. So these locked, this means this specific account type, right? I cannot change the rights on that. So if you think about this, this is a 12-month CD, right? Even though I'm the administrator, that's locked by the Civista, right? I can't change that. And it kind of makes sense, right? Because a CD has, certain requirements to it. There's certain penalties with it. A lot of times you can't add money or withdraw unless you're in that grace period. So that's the difference between the lock versus a circle. Good question. All right. I'm going to now move into reports. And I'm going to lose my changes. I don't want to save those. Okay. You're going to see there's multiple different reports and types of reports that we can set up. I'm going to pull up a couple that I've already ran, and then I'll show you how to create a new report. But this is a checks paid report. And just to give you an idea, we're going to always talk, put in there what the report date is, who created it, what the account number is that's associated with that. And then in this particular case, it's just what it says. It's going to be a checks paid report. It's going to show the different dates. It's going to show what the amount and then the check numbers and the references numbers are. So that's kind of the check paid report. One thing you're going to notice, the system does have a hard-coded timeout in it. So you get a 3-minute warning. Again, if you're in the middle of something, go ahead and save that work, right? And then what we'll do is close out and come back in. So I'll actually go ahead and close out here. I'm going to log off and log back in just so again, as we're in the middle of looking at or creating a report, we're not having to come back into the or lose that work. And hopefully that way everybody's back from refilling their coffee. Again, I'm just sitting here waiting for that secure access code to come. Okay, I'm back in here now. I'm going to go back to reports. Now, for those of you out there that are the company admin, this is a good report here. It's called the Company Entitlements Report. And what this report's going to do, it's going to show me first for Doughboys Pizza, right? It's going to show me what my users are out there, what my user roles are. It's also going to show me kind of when the last time was that they logged in. So for example, this accounts receivable, nobody's ever logged in. So, you know, again, as a cleanup, maybe do I really need that role? But as I go through here, then it's going to show me down to the user role level. So for the accounts receivable, or again, this could be Chris Colbert, depends on how you have those specific ones named. It's going to show me what are all the activities that I have available to me. So you can see I have enabled information reporting. That's what we're in there right now. And then it's going to show all the different reports that are turned on. Okay. Additionally, it's going to show me that I have access to do positive pay. It's going to also show me that, you know, I have access to, you know, ZBA reporting, whatever the cases are there, to do recipients. And then down below, it's going to start outlining, and I think this is kind of the important one, right? What accounts I have access to. And you can see on these, I have access to view all of these accounts, but I don't have access to deposit, and just a couple of them I have access to withdraw from. Additionally, it's going to then show me what my approval limits are, whether that be for taxes, whether that be for payroll. And then it really is going to show me what my limits are for each user type. So great report for the company admin to kind of go through and be able to do an audit, or if they have to produce it for an audit from time to time. Let's go into doing a new report. Okay. Like I said, a lot of different types of report. Let's go ahead and do an ACH online origination report. And I'm going to call this CK test. Not real inventive. I recommend that if you're going to do this, maybe put a little bit more description on there. I'm going to select all of my accounts. If I wanted to, I could select just a specific account. Actually, I'll take the CD off of there because that won't have any type of ACH origination through it. And then what dates do I want to include? Let's do everything within the last month. Now, here's an important concept to remember. So I can actually schedule these reports. And I highly recommend, if this is a report you want to see on a set frequency, whether it's monthly, you know, weekly, whatever the case is, set it up, because what will happen is the system will actually execute this report at like 4 or 5 a.m. And then when you sign into the digital platform, right, that report's already going to be out there for you. You'll see it does take just a little bit of time to run. So again, just to save yourself time, if it's one you're going to use on fairly regular frequency, just schedule it. For my purposes, I'm going to select all. Again, I could create a report for payroll. I could create another one for ACH collections. In my case, I'm just going to say, hey, I want to pull everything. Quite honestly, the reason I'm doing that, I'm not real sure what I have for ACH activity out there in my test environment. So you can see right now that report's in progress. Had we scheduled it and we came in, we would have seen the PDF or CSV file already existing out there. So while that's running, I'm going to go ahead and skip on to another component here, which is e-statements and notices. Okay, you're going to have this electronic document disclosure agreement come up. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. Okay. And then in this case, since I'm in a test environment, I don't have any of those accounts set up for e-statements. But what you would see if you were on your own accounts here, you would have the list of the accounts. You would have the different document types. So I could have statements, I could have notices, I could have maybe analysis statements, and then I can select the different dates as well. Now, one thing to kind of point out here, when you get into the system on June 9th, right, that's when we're going to go live with this. You'll actually have up to 18 months worth of history, as long as the account has been on e-statements for that long. So if you just signed up 6 months ago, obviously it would only show the last 6 months. Okay, we'll go down here to settings, and let's talk a little bit about alerts. Okay, you're going to notice that we have some security alerts turned on kind of out of the box, right? And one of the things that I encourage everybody to do is, you know, let those alerts run for a week or two. You know, you're going to have a a message box that may gets a little bit full, but kind of go through those and determine, hey, what type of alerts really make sense for me. So for example, you'll never get this alert and you may turn it off if you're not doing international wires, right? You may want to turn off, if a company policy is changed. Now you're going to notice there's some in here that are turned on that you can't turn off. And this is because of our bank policy, which basically says, hey, if there's a password that gets changed on your account, we want to notify you. So even though it shows there it's grayed out, that's by default. You're always going to get that anytime your password's changed. So those are kind of the security alerts. I'm going to show you how you can create some additional alerts should you want to. I go to new alert and I've got account alerts, history alert, and online transaction. I'm going to start with the online transaction alert. You'll notice I've got my different transaction types. Okay, so one of the types that I want to look at is going to be, for example, let's do the ACH batch. So if I wanted to say, hey, ACH batch, and for my business checking account, whoops, operator error there. I want to know whenever one of those are drafted, I can actually have an alert sent to me. I can have it by email, voice, text message. Those are the different options. Now you do have the ability as well to use secure messaging. One downside of that, keeping in mind, the only time I'm ever going to see that secure messaging is when I am into the digital platform. So might make a more sense to use one of the emails or the text messages. And again, I can do this for multiple different transaction types. You can see I could do it for tax payment, funds transfers, payroll, stop payments. If I had access to do wires, I would see it there for wires as well. All right, I'm going to do another alert here. And on this particular one, instead of an online transaction alert, I'm going to go ahead and do a history alert.
And while you're talking about alerts, are the alerts by user so that they don't get duplicate alerts, or how are the alerts set up?
Yeah, so the alerts are going to be set up by each individual user ID. That is correct. Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and do a credit transaction. And I'm going to basically say, hey, I want to know when a transaction more than make up a number, $10,000 hits this business checking account. And in my case, I'm going to say, hey, I want to get a text message for it. And I'm going to agree to the terms and conditions. So to kind of expand on the question that Brenda asked, right? I'm setting this up. This is just my alert. If Brenda set the same alert up and put in a different number, it's not like you would get that alert twice. You're only going to get that alert based off of that user. So that was a good question that came out. Okay. I'm going to go back to reports here. And one of the things that you're going to see is that ACH transactions is now completed. And again, I have a CSV file or a PDF. I'm going to just pull up the PDF, a little bit easier to consume. But the nice thing about the CSV, again, if you needed to import it into another system, you have the ability to do that. And you can see there were 8 ACH batches. So obviously been in here doing some different testing. They're going to have, different days, different types. So for example, that was an ACH payment. That was a CCD transaction for $1 out of Amber's Cookie Shop, right? Just kind of spot checking. Here's the one where it was an ACH collection. So again, I'm actually going and collecting rent possibly from somebody else. So just a lot of different ways to utilize this report. Again, the nice thing about it is I can narrow it down to a specific type and a specific date range. Okay, I want to make sure I show you this as well. Going down into my settings, and within my settings, there's going to be security preferences. Okay, so this is where I could change my password. Maybe my company's policy is I'm changing that password every, 15, 22 months, whatever the case is, right? And then I also have the ability to do secure delivery. And at this point, this is that access code. I could either update my email address, my cell number, whatever the case is there. So that's how you would go ahead and do that, was that security preferences. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the home here. I think what I'm going to ask Raymond to do is I'm going to quit sharing, and then I think we'll go see if there are any additional questions.
Chris, I have 2 additional questions. I was just waiting for you to finish up. They were asking about ACH reversals. I told them that would have to be turned on if they wanted it, but they wanted to know how to do that, and also how to future date ACHs.
Okay, we'll start with the reversals first off. Okay, so you would basically go into online activity. Okay, now you're going to see that since I don't have anything that's actually been processed, I don't have that option, but you would click on the option buttons and you would have an option there that said reversals. And when you get into that reversal, you have the option to reverse the entire batch, or you can actually reverse a specific item within there. So once I clicked on reversals, it's going to basically say, entire batch or individual item. And then once you got into that point, you would actually be able to select your item, for example. If you have the ability to approve it, you would be able to approve that. And that's how you would do that reversal. Okay. And Brenda, what was the other question? Reversals was the first one.
Future dating ACHs. So if they go on vacation and it's going to take place while they're gone, that they can set it up prior to leaving.
Yeah, and really that's going to be controlled by that effective date, right? So if you go into the business management, for example, you go into this payment template. And again, whether you're doing it through a payment template, whether we're uploading an ACH file for payroll, it's kind of the same way, but I'm just going to show you basically off of an ACH batch. I'm going to go back into these vendor payments. So there's a couple different ways that I can do it. I could actually go ahead and do it this way, in which case I can go in and say, I'm going on vacation June 8th. So I'm going to actually make this effective, but I'm actually going to approve that transaction. So what that is going to do then, it's going to be queued up, ready to go. And what you would see within the online activity, right? And I actually did this not intending to, but it's a great example, right? You can see that I authorized it today. It's going to actually process on the 24th with the effective date of the 28th. So in essence, had I not canceled this file, that's basically what I did, was future dated it. So hopefully that answers that. And again, if you have additional questions, we can take a deeper dive one off if we need to. It was a good question though. Anything else, Brenda, before I turn it back over?
I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for that in-depth and detailed demonstration. We certainly learned quite a bit, and I was right in saying that you are the digital expert, that's for sure. Before we go ahead and finish up, we do have like a minute or two if anyone does have a particular question that they'd like, if you could put it into the Q&A. But meanwhile, Brenda, would you like to maybe summarize a couple of the items? Because we had a lively Q&A discussion for this session.
Did have a lively discussion. A good majority of them were answered because I asked Chris specifically because they were more detailed. A lot of them had to do with the files, NACHA text files, how they could get the files in. Again, the go live date is June 9th. If one of the questions was how long will check images be available? Will they disappear after 90 days? And no, they will not disappear after 90 days. They will be available longer. I don't know the exact time frame for that, but I can find that out. And if anyone needs that answer, they can give us a call and we'll let them know.
Great, that's excellent.
Yep.
All righty, terrific. what I'd like to do is I'd like to thank all of you for participating in our digital banking demonstration for businesses. And I really hope that you enjoyed it and you can see the advantages that we are bringing in a smarter, brighter digital banking for Civista Bank. I do want you to know that we will be sending a follow-up email with a recording of today's session. Meanwhile, we encourage you to visit this website. It is civista.bank/brighter-banking. Again, that is civista.bank/brighter-banking for important dates and messages as we get closer to our June 9th launch. As you can see on the screen, we are really here to help you with any of your questions in order to get you started. We have our numbers that you can reach for customer support, and that would be 844-842-0268. Or you can contact your Treasury Management Officer. So we thank you once again for
Raymond,
participating.
I hate to interrupt you, but we have a couple more questions that just came in, so.
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah,
Great. Let me go. Do you want to go ahead and go with that?
sure, I can go with it. As far as showing a demo of the positive pay system, you can reach out to your Treasury Management Officer or contact the Business Digital Banking team, and we'll be able to help you with that. Chris does not have that loaded, so he wasn't able to demo that right now. And then as far as logging in the first time with your tokens, it's only for the first time, but you will log in with the first token code, and then you'll wait your 30 seconds until you get your second token code and put that in, and then you'll be able to change your password. And then the last question, will the recording also include the Q&As? And can we watch the session on May 25th?
Well, I can answer that. The recording will have the live Q&As that were asked. It will not necessarily include the Q&A that were written. However, if you do have any particular questions, feel free to reach out to your Treasury Management Officer, or again, call the customer support number that you see on the screen. As far as the one on the 25th, if you make a specific request, we can certainly send you the session for the 25th as well. So just let us know and we will certainly reach out to you and be able to provide that for you. Okay, are there any other questions before I wrap up? Okay, excellent. Again, thank you. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I did show you the poll was out, so that's good. Just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, well, everyone, again, thank you. Brenda, thank you. Chris, thank you so much. I appreciate your participation, and we're looking for a smarter, brighter digital banking in the future. Everyone, you have a good afternoon.
Bye.